Welcome back to Monster Mayhem, all a part of my fantasy fall. Today's monster actually happens to be a personal favorite of mine, whether you know this one from video games, whether you know them from movies, or whether you know it from Greek mythology. Today, I want to talk about the treat from Crete, the Minotaur. So really the question you need to ask first of all with a Minotaur is how bully do you want this? Now, I have been making up some scales and I'm going to do it again. So I have my human on one side and I've got my bull on another side, and I call this my bovine barometer. How human and how bullish do you want your Minotaur to be? Do you want it to be like the Greek myth where the Minotaur is simply just a man with a bull head? Or do you want your Minotaur to be very much into the fantastical and way more animalistic as opposed to more human? So it's got its human features, sort of anthropomorphic. However, it's hooved, it's more in line with actually being a creature. That's up to you. Once you've decided that, ultimately you're going to have to draw some sort of bovine head, whether it's a cow, whether it's a bull, or buffalo. If we're going to start more with a bull cow, we really need to start with a kind of blocky, chunky triangle. And if you find your center in that triangle, that's usually where I find kind of like my eye line and where my masseter muscle is. And I'm actually going to leave a little bit of room for an extra rectangle, which is where my snout is going to be. It's almost more like a trapezoid. But to build my snout, I actually like to use a triangle with a pentagon. And if I overlap them, that actually gives me kind of a good idea. And also, cows' noses do kind of look a little bit like dog noses. That you have that same basic anchor shape, but the nostril forms sort of a teardrop or maybe an apostrophe. So if you think about that whenever you're doing it, you're going to be in good shape whenever you're drawing. And remember that a bovine head is really wide. Bovine head is not very narrow. That would be more of an equine head. So that's going to be more your horses. And we don't really want that. We want to have these big, wider, thicker animals whenever we are making our Minotaur, especially if your Minotaur is going to be sort of a tank. So connecting the pieces is going to be another really key aspect, because you don't just want this to look like a human that's wearing sort of a bull head mask, because if you have too harsh of a line and it's not seamed together well, it's going to look exactly like that. So something that I like kind of remember is whenever I'm pulling it together is I want to know the direction of the hair, because I want to seam the hair into the body really well so that it looks more natural and it looks like these two pieces are together as one. And if you understand the direction of body hair on a general sense that it will work on a human, you can follow those patterns with the head, and you can actually have that hair just trickle down into the body as far or as little as you want, but just enough to make sure that they look like they're seamed together really well. Now the same concept will apply not just on the upper torso for the head to the shoulders, but also to the lower torso from the abdomen down to the legs. So understanding how to mix and match these together, balancing how much hair you want based on how much human side you want to peek through on your Minotaur is going to be really helpful to making this look like it's one cohesive creature, and that it's not just a bunch of Frankenstein pieces that you've mixed together, that this is the kind of animal part, this is the kind of human part, and it's really obvious that there is a distinction between the two. And really, we want them to look like they're all melded together, because these are fantasy creatures and they're supposed to live and exist in their own world. So horns and heads is another big thing, because the more and more I think about Minotaurs, the more I also think about the fact that there's tons of different bovines out there. There's buffalo, there's water buffalo, there's American buffalo, there is, Highland cows, which have tons of hair, which are really fun. But then you also have longhorns. You have these different cow types that are all over. And I think what would be really cool is to have Minotaurs that reflect all of these different type of cows that we have as well, because that just makes it look way more interesting, way more lived in. It looks like it could be, regional, specific. It's just something that adds so much depth of character to these fantasy creatures, and I encourage kind of exploring that. Thanks for watching, everyone. My little video on the Minotaur, a personal favorite of mine. Head on over to my school if you want to download art hacks and be a part of a community of artists that are all growing together. And with that, go practice drawing some creatures. Thanks, everyone.